Hey, what's good, guys? Clutch Entertainment here, back in another video. And for today's video, we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans. But before I start, I want to give you all a big thanks for the support that we've really gotten on our past 3 videos. I mean, this is probably our best stretch, our best 3-video stretch that we've had probably on the channel. And I mean, we've been doing this channel for maybe, 3 years now, something like that. 3-4 years now, almost. Since around the time that Deshaun Watson kind of requested out. But it's a big thanks to really Patrick, our newest member. He's pretty much edited, recorded, and just done everything on the past 3 videos, basically. I mean, from the Daniel Hunter breakdown to the Texans' best team of all time breakdown and to the Reed Shepherd breakdown. I mean, those past 3 videos were spectacular. Be sure to go watch it if you want to see more about how Daniel Hunter can fit on this defense. If this current Texans team is going to be the best of all time, even better than the Matt Schaub, Arian Foster, and Andre Johnson team. And then the Reed Shepherd breakdown on how he's really going to fit into this Rockets team. But yeah, our newest member, Patrick, make sure to go follow him. He's been doing a great job in these past 3 videos. But yeah, this video, basically, I'm going to be talking about, can the Houston Texans be true contenders to the NFL? Can they really be a Super Bowl contender? Can they really compete with the best of the best? Can they compete with the likes of the Chiefs, with the likes of the Ravens? And if they are to go that far to the Super Bowl, can they beat a team like the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl? Can they beat a team like, who else? The Lions in the Super Bowl, who we also happen to play on Sunday Night Football. Can we beat teams like these when it really comes down to it? And I'm just going to be breaking down each positional group very, very, I wouldn't say thoroughly, but very, very briefly. Let me start with the quarterback room. Now, when you look at the Texans quarterback room, your first thoughts go to C.J. Stroud, and rightfully so. C.J. Stroud is, for me, a top 5 quarterback in the league. You have, of course, Patrick Mahomes. I feel like he's undeniably the best quarterback in the league. Probably going to be the best quarterback of all time when it's all said and done. Then you have Josh Allen, who I'm not sure if I would say is number 2, but he's definitely in the top 5. You have Lamar Jackson, who's in the top 5. You have C.J. Stroud, who's in the top 5. And for that last option, for me, it's kind of a throw up. I personally don't really like Jalen Hurts as a top 5 quarterback. I think you can have possibly Dak up there. I know that's questionable. I know a lot of people don't really like Dak, but when you look at it, he does perform in the regular season. He does put up the stats. He does help the team. Playoffs, that's a different story, but in the regular season, he does perform. And I also personally really, really like Justin Herbert. So I think C.J. Stroud would probably be in the 4 to 5 range between all those quarterbacks right now off of his rookie season. So coming into his second year, he's already, for me, an unquestioned top 5 quarterback. I think that's very, very huge. And when you look at the quarterback room or the quarterback position throughout the league, I mean, that's probably easily the most important position group and position in general, probably in most of all sports, I think. More important than a point guard, more important than a pitcher. If you want to look at soccer, more important than, a striker. He's the most important position in all of sports, I think. And C.J. Stroud, to have a top 5 guy at that position, I feel like that's great for any team. Any team would want a top 5 quarterback. But then when you look at the rest of the room, you also have Davis Mills. You also have Case Keenum, who I feel like can go into a game and win it if needed, if C.J. Stroud does go down. Now, when you look at the Jets game, that's a different story. I mean, plus the game was already over, basically, by the time Davis Mills went in. But when you look at the Titans game, of course, Case Keenum wasn't good by any means. I think he did have 2 interceptions pretty early, or at least in the game in general. One might have even been a pick 6, I think. I'm kind of blanking out on that game a little bit. But Case Keenum did show he can win a game. But do you want that? Probably not. I think you would probably start Davis Mills if C.J. Stroud is to have an injury or go down or something next season. But the quarterback room in general, when you add up the backups and everything, I feel like is a top 7, top 8 quarterback room in all of the NFL. And I think that's very, very important for a team that plans on contending, for a team that plans on making a deep run in the Super Bowl, or at least making a deep run in the playoffs. And, I mean, yeah, I think it's very important to have a quarterback room, as I think most people, if not all, would agree. Now, the next positional group I'm going to talk about is the running back room. And, of course, you have Joe Mixon, who last year I wouldn't really say had a down year because, I mean, you did have to deal with the injuries to Joe Burrow. You had to deal with the injuries to Jamar Chase, and that kind of limited that offense. They kind of basically had to give the ball to Joe Mixon at one point of the year for like every single snap, it seemed like. Every pass was going to Joe Mixon. Every run was going to Joe Mixon. Every time the offense had the ball, it was Joe Mixon. And, I mean, Joe Mixon could only do so much when all eyes are on him. And I feel like coming to a team like the Texans, where you also have Dameon Pierce in that running back room, who, if he can even be half of what he was in his rookie year, I feel like this can be a very good running back duo. I mean, Joe Mixon, he brings the pass catching ability, the more agile, make you miss. He can also run through guys, don't get me wrong, but he's the more of the juke you, try to make you miss, just get the ball out in space type of guy. And Dameon Pierce is the guy who's going to get those nitty-gritty yards. And I'm not saying Joe Mixon can't, because we've seen that he can. He's, 6-something? I think it's like 6'1", 6'2", 200 and some pounds. I mean, he's a big guy. He's a big running back. But he can also do a lot of things where it's like he looks like he's 5'11", 180 pounds. Like, he's like a Tank Dell type of guy. But, yeah, when you look at Dameon Pierce as well, I feel like he can be a very valuable piece to this offense if he can even be half of what he was his rookie year. He had 1,000, I think he barely hit 1,000 yards his rookie year, but you have to think. I mean, it was a Davis Mills-led offense, so almost every snap was going to Dameon Pierce. A lot of Dameon Pierce runs. He even had, I think, maybe 300 receiving yards, if I'm not mistaken, something like that his rookie year. It might have been a little bit less. Maybe I'm going a little crazy. But yeah, if Dameon Pierce can get you maybe a calm 400 yards, maybe that's a little bit too much to ask for. Maybe it's a little bit too late to ask for. I'm not really sure. But if you give you something maybe in that range, rushing yards, I feel like you would be in great shape. Let's just safely assume Joe Mixon gets you 950 yards. If Dameon Pierce can get you maybe 350, 450 total rushing yards, I feel like that's a pretty good, successful year for Dameon Pierce. In best case scenario, maybe he gets 500 yards. Who knows? I think that might be a little bit too much to ask for from a running back too, especially in a team where I feel like is going to be very, very pass heavy. But that's going to be my next, I guess, point. That's enough for the running back room. I think the running back room, especially with the Jawar Jordan addition, and then, of course, you got that undrafted free agent. I forgot his name, but I think maybe he could potentially make the team, maybe on the practice squad, and if there are injuries, he could come in and maybe provide at least a little bit of juice. But, yeah, I think this running back room, when you look at the NFL, it's probably maybe that 12 range, 13 range, assuming Dameon Pierce can bring somewhat of his rookie year back into form. But I think that's a safe bet right now, 12, 13 range. Yes, Joe Mixon, I think he's probably the 11th, 10th best running back in the league. And then Dameon Pierce, again, I don't want to keep talking about Dameon Pierce, but we can get back anywhere close to that. I feel like he's a top 20 running back in the league even. I mean, rookie Dameon Pierce was a top 15 running back with ease. Might have even been a little bit higher. So probably I think 11 is a very safe place to rank them for right now, at least. Let's talk about the receiver room now. Now, when you look at the receiver room, I mean, there's not much to say. There's the best receiver trio in the league. That's the best receiver room in the league. It might be the best receiving room of the past 5 years, maybe. I mean, trying to look back in the NFL history, I don't think there's been many receiver rooms that have been this good over the past few years. Basically what I'm trying to say. You have Nico Collins, who had 1,200-something yards last year, and he missed, I don't think he missed too many games, maybe like 3. I don't know. I'm blanking out right now. And then Stephon Diggs, who sure he had a down year in terms of stats, but I think I don't think he really regressed at all. I think he's still Stephon Diggs. I mean, his game was never really speed. His game is just route running, get open, and just get the ball in his hands. He's going to make magic happen. And Tank Dell, yes, he's coming off of a gunshot wound. Yes, he's coming off of a broken leg. He is coming off of a few pretty major, I don't want to say, yeah, I guess you could say injuries. Pretty major injuries, but I think Tank Dell, it seems like he's recovering very nice. He's training like normal, been training all offseason with C.J. Stroud and with his personal wide receiver coach. So, I mean, yeah, there's not too much to say about this receiver room. I think they can become, I think it's 4 or 5 receiver rooms that have had 3 1,000 yards receivers. I think it's something like that. And I think the Texans can definitely be the next up on that list to have 3 1,000 yard receivers. And, I mean, my favorite part of this receiver room, yes, you have Tank Dell. Yes, you have Nico Collins. Yes, you have Stephon Diggs. But then you also have Noah Brown. You also have John Mechie as a receiver 4 and 5. And if there is an injury to one of the top 3 guys, you still have valuable guys who can step up and make plays. I mean, John Mechie, we haven't seen too much of him making plays for us yet, but I think that's definitely going to change with the way everybody's basically been talking about him recently. And then Noah Brown, I mean, we saw last year he had a couple of really, really, really good performances for us. And then if we do maybe keep Robert Woods as a wide receiver 5. I don't think we will. I think we will ultimately end up cutting him. But even a wide receiver 5 is probably going to be very, very good. I mean, you either have Skronik, you either have Woods, you either have Hutchinson, you either have one of the twins. Yeah, basically all 5 are wide receivers. We might even keep 6 just for the sake of it because we have so many. But all of the wide receivers that are going to make this roster, I feel like they're all guys who can contribute if they're on the field. All guys CJ Stroud feels comfortable throwing to. But yeah, this receiver room, I mean, for me, is one of the best, if not, I mean, yeah, it is easily the best. What am I saying? It's the best wide receiver room in the league. Let me not get too humble here. I mean, it is what it is. It's the best receiver room in the NFL. And I'm going to just quickly go over the tight end position. I mean, you have Dalton Schultz, who CJ Stroud grew a pretty good relationship with last year. I feel like they're a pretty good duo. I mean, I think Dalton Schultz had 700-something yards. Might have been 800-something like that. Pretty good season for Dalton. We ended up bringing him back on a 3-year deal. You have Brevin Jordan, who kind of showed up in the playoffs, I feel like, especially in the Browns game, and especially in a couple other games as well. I feel like he showed up pretty decently. He even had to line up at fullback a couple of times. Now, I'm not sure I feel comfortable with him lining up at fullback, but he showed that he can do it if really needed. I mean, I don't think he will be needed to, but if he is needed to, he should be able to. And then you got Cade Stover. Really, CJ Stroud's one of his best friends from college, and then now you have him on the same NFL team. I feel like that's pretty good. But offensive line, I'm going to quickly go over this positional group as well. Left tackle, you have the top 2 left tackle in the league in Laramie Tunsil. I mean, arguably number 1, but I'm going to just say number 2 to play it safe. Probably only behind the guy in San Francisco. I'm blanking out on his name right now. Probably only behind him. Left guard, now that's a very big question mark. Center, that's also a pretty big question mark. But right guard, you have a top 10 right guard in Shaq Mason. Right tackle, you have an above average tackle in Titus Howard. But as far as left guard and center go, I think you do have a bunch of options. You do have a bunch of guys you could put there. It's just who's going to really win the battle. And we're going to see that in training camp and preseason. You got guys like Kendrick Green. You have guys like Kenyon Green. You have guys like Juice Scruggs. You have guys like, what's his name? Patterson. What's his name? I'm blanking on his first name. I'm sorry. But you have Patterson, the guy from Notre Dame. So you definitely do have a pretty decent amount of guys in the interior that can fill in for left guard and center. And you also have a what seems to be great backup tackle in Blake Fisher. I mean, you drafted him in the 2nd round. Probably going to end up being Titus Howard's replacement maybe in a year or 2, depending on if you want to make cap space with cutting him or releasing him or trading him or whatever. So that's an option as well. But you have very, very good depth, and you have very, very good starters. So I think on paper, this offensive line should be top 10. Will it be top 10? I don't know, but it should be top 10, especially if left guard and center are at least average. I feel like if you can at least get average play from whoever starts there, you should be pretty good. But now let's quickly go over the defense. I don't want to make this video too long. I know some people enjoy longer videos. Some people enjoy shorter videos. Me personally, if I'm watching a Texans video or just video in general, I like longer videos, but I can see both ways. But let me quickly go over the defense. Now, when you look at the defensive line, a lot of people say that they're not really fans of it, or especially at least fans of the interior, and I can kind of understand that. I kind of agree, but I think the edge presence kind of just blows that out of the water. I feel like the Texans' edge presence helps a lot when you look at the interior. I don't think you're going to have to worry about the interior too much when you have guys like Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, Danico Autry at times, who can line up inside and outside. You also have Derek Barnett. And if Dylan Horton can come back and possibly play this season after battling cancer this past year, I feel like if he can come back and even provide anything, that's a very huge plus as well, because he did have a pretty good start for the Texans. I mean, he wasn't a starter, he was a rotational guy, but the snaps that he did play, you could definitely see him on the field. And if you can add him, he can also play inside and outside. So when you have a lot of tweeners like that, you have a bunch of Danico Autry's basically, maybe like 3 Danico Autry's. Imagine 3 Danico Autry's on the Texans team. I feel like that's very, very good success. That's a recipe to success for this defensive line and defense in general. Now, the interior, yes, I'm pretty worried about it. I think we do still lack a true run stuffer. I would have loved to maybe grab Tavondre Sweat in the draft. Obviously, he did have a lot of character concerns and stuff like that, and he did go pretty early, but that was one of my guys I wanted to fill in that run stuffing position. But, I mean, it is what it is. I think this Texans edge presence is going to help a lot with that interior presence. But yeah, linebackers. I mean, I think the linebackers are great. At least the starting linebackers. When you look at Christian Harris and Aziz Al-Shaair, I think that's a top 10 linebacker, or a top 10 starting linebacker room. But when you look at their backups, that's kind of where I get worried. If one of them go down, Christian Harris, who kind of had to deal with injuries his first year and then a little bit last season, he was pretty healthy for most of the year, but he did have to deal with a couple of injuries coming into the NFL. If he is to go down at all this season, I feel like you're gonna have a little bit of issues. You're gonna have a little bit of trouble. And then when you look at Aziz, basically the leader, the commander, the quarterback of the defense, if he's to go down, yeah, I think you have a big problem. Henry To'oTo'o, I like him, but he's not no Aziz Al-Shaair. He isn't as athletic as him. He can't hit as hard as him. He's not as fast as him, and he's not the leader that Aziz is. And if Aziz is to go down, I don't think the defense would crumble, but I think a big part of the defense would be gone. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope for full health and everybody stays healthy. But yes, if Aziz goes down, I think there would definitely be a bunch of issues. I think I think it's going to be easier to replace Christian Harris than Aziz if one of them is to go down. Let's hope none go down, but yes. As far as the DBs, the cornerback room, I think is great. A lot of people have questions about it, especially at cornerback too. I did at first, but the way people talked about Kamari Lassiter in OTAs and everything, I kind of am not as worried. I mean, yes, it was just OTAs. You didn't have pads on or anything. But it seems like a lot of people in the building are pretty high on Kamari Lassiter, and I think he's going to be a year cornerback too at week 1 at Indianapolis. He's probably going to be he's probably going to be matched up against, I keep blanking on people's names today. The receiver that they drafted from Texas, Adonai Mitchell? Yeah, A.D. Mitchell. He's probably going to be matched up against him come week 1. So that's going to be a pretty big matchup, I think, for him. But it's going to see what type of player he is in the league. And I think he can definitely be a cornerback too. But my biggest worry and biggest concern for the Texans is if Derek Stingley goes down, then I think you have a major problem. Kamari Lassiter being thrown in to that cornerback 1 spot, I don't think is ideal in any way if Stingley is to miss a couple of games. And I don't think you want Jeff Okudah or CJ Henderson starting as your number 1 corner either. I think you would definitely have some issues. But as long as everybody stays healthy, or as long as Derek Stingley stays healthy, I think your cornerback room is going to be okay. It's probably going to be, I don't want to say average. I think it has potential to be above average, especially with Kamari Lassiter. You hope he can be a very good cornerback for you. Still yet to be seen. Of course, he's a rookie. But yeah, a cornerback room of Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, Jeff Okudah as really depth, and then of course CJ Henderson as depth. And then my biggest wild card is Desmond King. Now Desmond King, he can play on the slot, he can play outside as cornerback 2 if needed in emergency situations. But I also think he can provide value as a kick returner, especially with his new special team or kickoff rule. And then he could probably even also play safety in certain packages, especially in blitzes, mainly on blitzes. I'm not saying he can't play safety. I don't feel comfortable with him back there. But if you want to play a special package and have him blitz, I feel like he could play safety. So Desmond King, for me, is the biggest X factor and wild card in this quarterback room. And yes, it may sound a little bit crazy when you do have Derek Stingley, but it ought to be a little bit different here. Let's say Desmond King. I think he can provide a lot of value, as I just mentioned, but mainly on the blitz, slot blitz, safety blitz, any type of blitz you want to do with him. I feel like he's a very good blitzer, very good tackler, very safe hitter. I think he's a pretty reliable guy when it comes to tackling. He's not a guy you're going to have to worry about being sloppy, the running back being able to break the tackle, or the receiver being able to break the tackle. I feel like Desmond King is able to hold his own. But yeah, let's talk about the safety room really quickly. And the safety room, that's probably one of my favorite positional groups on the team. You have Kalen Bullock, the rookie, the 3rd round rookie. Very, very lengthy pause, very good range, pretty good speed. His sideline to sideline speed is phenomenal. And the biggest concern with him is probably just tackling. I think that's going to be kind of an issue for him, especially with how, I don't want to say small he is, because he's a big guy. Okay, this keeps sounding weird, but he's a bigger guy in terms of height, but he just lacks a little bit of weight. He needs a little bit of weight more on his body, and I think if he does that and improves his tackling form, I think he could probably be a very, very good safety in this league. I saw a couple of comparisons to Marcus Williams, and I can kind of see that. For me, I don't know if I have a specific guy in mind, but I think he can definitely be a top one of the better safeties in the league. At least I don't want to say a top 10 because that's kind of crazy. Top 10 safeties is what, two. Yeah, I don't know. I think he can definitely be one of the better safeties in the league. But you also have Jimmy Ward. You have Jalen Petrie, who I hope can have a bounce back year. Definitely struggled last season compared to his rookie year, but I definitely do think he can have a bounce back year. Last year he was kind of just learning the safety position over again, and then this year is probably gonna be his first true year being a full-time safety. Last year he was kind of moving around a lot. Rookie year, it was just a weird defense in general. But this year, his third year, hopefully he can come in here and be a staple of this defense. And if he can, then this defense is, I think, most definitely going to be a top 10, arguably a top 5 defense in the league. I mean, you have an alpha at cornerback 1 and Derek Stingley. You have a very, very good linebacker or starting linebacker duo. Very dominant and ferocious defensive line. And if your safety room has a guy like Jimmy Ward and a guy like Jalen Petrie starting, I feel like you're due for some success. And even their backups, Eric Murray and MJ Stewart, I know they kind of get a lot of hate, especially Eric Murray. And, I mean, for me, I don't think it's really fair to give him hate because, I mean, obviously he wasn't brought in to start. He was brought in to be a backup. Now, the contract that he first received from Bill O'Brien, yes, that was a huge overpay, but it seems like Nick Caserio has kind of fixed that contract situation, got him on a much smaller deal. But his role on this team is to be a backup. And I think he's one of the better backups in the league. I feel like you can be comfortable with him starting maybe a game or two if there is an injury. And I think, yeah. So the safety room, for me, is one of the better ones in the league. If healthy, if Jimmy Ward can stay healthy for at least more than 75% of the season, and especially in the playoffs, I think the secondary and this defense, and just this team in general, is going to make a loud bang this season. And I think they could definitely make the championship game against the Chiefs. Now, are they going to win? I think that's going to be a game for C.J. Stroud. You have all the tools necessary to win that game. You have all the weapons. You have the running backs. You have the tight ends, the receivers. Hopefully the offensive line is healthy and looks very, very good in the playoffs. The defense, they have all your guys. Everybody's healthy. I think that's going to be a game that's a C.J. Stroud versus Patrick Mahomes strictly based off of that type of game. Whoever is the best quarterback is going to win that game. Both have similar teams. Both have similar situations. It's probably going to be who's the better quarterback that game, who's going to win if we are to make the championship game against the Chiefs. But yeah, I mean, let me know what you guys think. Do you think the Texans can be true contenders this season? Do you think we're going to be able to contend with the likes of the Chiefs and the Ravens? Do you think we're going to easily win easily win the division? Do you think we're going to struggle winning the division? Do you think the Colts can make a run with us, or the Jaguars possibly? But yeah, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. It's been Clutch and Timid, and hope you guys have a good day. Peace.